My research proposal is cults and psychological manipulation. This has been a topic of mine that I have been wanting to explore for a while now. So let's dive into it. So, what is a cult? Well, it refers to a group using manipulative tactics for extreme control. It's centered around charismatic leaders, compelling strict beliefs, also using techniques including love bombing, isolation and gaslighting, exercises, also uses exercises, psychological vulnerabilities for power and loyalty. So the charismatic leader or the leader of the group uses all of these to manipulate the recruit. So my research questions are, do people who fall victim to cults have a psychological susceptibility for them, or is it true that it can happen to anyone? What makes cults so dangerous? And how do cults recruit their members into the group? So individuals may exhibit psychological susceptibilities like heightened need for belonging, low self-esteem, and just overall being a loner. Cults are dangerous due to the psychological manipulation, isolation, and exploitation. And cults recruit members through deceptive practices like love bombing, where they say that they constantly love them, targeting vulnerable individuals, those individuals that have like mental illness, like depression, or just have low self-esteem, and they just gradually introduce their belief systems to the recruit. Literature review. Hassan used the BITE model, which is behavior, information, thought, and emotional control for manipulation. This article, the BITE model of authoritarian control, undue influence in cults, and other totalitarian groups, provides a framework for understanding cult leaders' manipulation. It also discusses psychological impact of manipulation, including erosion of critical thinking and autonomy. In a cult, you lose your autonomy. You become one with the group. In this second article by Zimbardo and Hartley, Cults Go to High School, a theoretical and empirical analysis of the initial stage of the recruitment process. It examines recruitment strategies of cults targeting young, impressionable individuals. Like I said, those students that have low self-esteem, are loners, and are basically isolated. It analyzes psychological and social factors influencing recruitment, and it highlights the role of charismatic leaders and groupthink in fostering compliance and loyalty. Another literature is the Milgram study in 1963. Stanley Milgram, was a scientist and a psychologist. He measured participants' willingness to obey authority figures. He quantified shock level. Participants were willing to administer under a learning experiment, investigated conditions under which people obey or disobey authority. His experiment involved 40 male participants aged between 20 and 50 years old. Now I'm thinking he did this because women back then weren't seen as equals to males. So he chose between 20 and 50 years old, probably because that's the right age range that men can be manipulated mind-wise. Um, Participants were recruited through newspaper advertisements and direct mail solicitation. Um, some of the examples of careers or workers that he chose are postal clerks, people that work in post offices, high school teachers, salesmen, engineers, laborers, and those with doctorate degrees. That's kind of interesting. I would like to have been a fly on that wall. Okay, are these articles that I talked about explore psychological and social mechanisms underlying cult behavior. Hassan's bite model addresses the question of psychological susceptibility to cults. Hassan's posit, Hassan posits that cult exploits universal psychological tendencies like conformity, obedience to authority, and cognitive dissonance. Now, I believe that with the obedience to authority can be tied back to Milgram's study. And then it supports the idea that anyone can fall victim to a cult under certain circumstances. So methods and data collection. Um, I'll be using mixed methods to study the design of cult recruitment. The correlation study I'll be using examines relationships between psychological traits and cult joining likelihood. Participants are former cult members and non-cult participants, and I'll be using psychological assessments like the Big Five personality inventory, need to belong scale, and suggestibility measures. I'll also be doing a qualitative study. This conducts semi-structured interviews with former cult members. So I'll be getting their feedback, or not feedback, but their experiences being in the cult. This study gathers insights into recruitment methods, appeal of cult, and manipulation tactics. And data will answer research question on cult danger and recruitment methods. Continuing on with my methods and data collection, experimental component. This is an option, but it simulates cult-like recruitment tactics and control in a controlled environment. It exposes participants to persuasive techniques to measure manipulation susceptibility. So it's like how easy are they to manipulate into believing something else. The data collection, I'll be using Pearson correlation coefficient for the correlation study, the multiple regression analysis for multiple regression analyses. The group comparison, I'll be using t-test and ANOVA. And for the experiment component, I'll be paired sample t-test or repeated measures ANOVA. So my hypothetical data presentation, it utilizes personality assessments and comparisons between cult members and non-members. It categorizes cult dangers into physical, psychological, social, and financial harms. Data collected from survivor testimonies, legal records, and psychological evaluations, and the methods include ANOVA, t-test, the Pearson correlation coefficient, and multiple regression. So it's pretty much, I'll be using all of that to gather my data to complete this study. Findings is the research on cult recruitment vulnerability identifies traits or circumstances affecting vulnerability to cult recruitment, informs preventative strategies like targeting, counseling, and public awareness campaigns, and it aids therapists in treating former cult members, aiding in psychological trauma, recovering, and societal reintegration. So we want them to integrate back into society after they've been isolated for so long. So future research. This will aid therapists in treating former cult members. It aids definitely law enforcement and criminology, those in criminology, in developing policies to monitor harmful groups. It also helps educators and social workers like myself to identify at-risk individuals, especially those experiencing social isolation or emotional distress. When it says social isolation, they keep to themselves. They don't want to be around anybody. They just want to be alone. Emotional distress could be depression. How do they see themselves? If they feel that they don't belong to anybody, then they're in an emotional distress, and so they're more likely to be manipulated into these cults. So, in conclusion, research on recruitment tactics in cults. This research examines tactics like love bombing, coercion, and existential fear exploitation. It provides insights to counteract these strategies, potentially benefit society by fostering resilience, promoting mental health, and protecting individual. And it also bridges theoretical understanding with practical application. So after I've done my research and gotten all my information from the former members and of the cult and non-members of the cults, I'll be able to combine all that and come up with these conclusions, and we should be able to find ways in order to help those people that have low self-esteem or are depressed or just need help. And here you will see the references that I used in this presentation. Thank you.